So now we're headed into the middle month of June. And so we're going to begin this middle of the month on the 14th by seeing a new moon in Gemini. So now instead of an opposition to the sun and the moon in Sagittarius and Gemini, the moon moves into the sign of Gemini and sits right next to the sun. It'll also sit right next to Uranus in Gemini, which is something, again, that's very volatile and unpredictable and sort of frenetic, if you will. And that has a lot to do with the media. So there's a lot of news hitting us right and left from many parts of our conversations, especially the media itself, as we see a lot of shifts and changes around what our media is looking like or about to become as we move forward. Now, the other thing that's happening is the subject of sports, because I talked about how sports is very prolific during this time. And so we have things beginning and some things coming to an end. So the thing that's beginning is the World Cup. One thing coming to an end is the NBA Finals, which is really what everybody in this country is talking about and excited about. It's created quite a frenzy, and it's very exciting. So another thing that's happening is how this affects Donald Trump. I said because of this combination of Gemini and Sagittarius, it affects his personal birth chart. And so what Donald Trump's done with this in his own energy is that our current emperor, who is a Gemini, has created a modern day Colosseum to give us a modern day sporting spectacle of a gladiator. So this is, it's amazing when you think about it, because I couldn't have predicted, but when you think of it symbolically and how Donald Trump would manage this energy and do something with it, it makes perfect sense when you think of his karma and how he sees himself. So anyway, that's one major thing that's happening. And then there's another one. Another one is that Venus has moved into Leo, and Venus is now going to make an opposition to Pluto in Aquarius. So Venus rules two signs. It rules relationships and Taurus. So in relationships in Taurus, we're going to have conflicts or struggles around shifts and change around money. And the reason it becomes more about money is because Mars is currently in Taurus, which rules money. So we have more money issues when it comes to relationships. Are you guys struggling or fighting about money and your values and relationships of what you're doing in your life and where you're putting your money or where you're making investments or whatever? Because another thing that's happening is investments around money. Because this just began the highest IPO in history with with SpaceX basically going public and creating the first trillionaire ever to exist. So all the money markets and investments and things are going to shift in different places and ways, especially when we look at AI, technology, and how much focus is being put on the future of technology, essentially. So that's going on. And then we get into a shift of energy when we get more toward the 20th of this month, because that's when the sun moves into Cancer. We go into the Summer Solstice. Now, Cancer is a water sign, and it's about safety and security issues. It rules the past, it rules family, it rules things that secure us and feel safe in. And then another thing that's happening, there's a symbol in astrology called Chiron. Chiron is the wounded healer in our chart. And the wounded healer is more of a spiritual wound that we bring in to heal in this lifetime. And so when Chiron is in Taurus, it's about, once again, money. It's about values and self-worth. So what is our self-worth and what are our values in Taurus? And so it's going to be there for the next 3 months. So the focus on our collective wounds and healings will be about how we are, about what our values are and our worth is, and where we put that, where we feel about that in our lives. It will only be there briefly because it will move back into Aries, but the first 3 months, or not first 3 months, the 3 months going forward, we're going to have that sort of energy playing out collectively. So if we look at that, we're going to look at where our security and safety lies within our values and within our resources, because resources are what we use in order to create security and safety issues. And it isn't just the money itself, it's like what we actually value and what we actually need that's secure and make us feel safe. Is it more stuff? Is it a bigger house, more investments? Is that something that you're focused on in terms of your value and worth, about how big or how much that is? Or is it really something simple? Do you feel like really you'd rather live on a farm with very simple needs and parts of nature and feel more self-sufficient rather than relying on external resources for your values, your wants, and your worth? So these are things that will go through, and you're going to see a shift in the housing market. It's already started where they're saying people are pulling their homes off the market because they feel like they don't want to take risks at this time. And I would recommend that, to not look at taking risks at this time, because there's so much that's unknown and so much that's overwhelming. And so it feels like we go into this safety and security issue in our lives. But I want to bring up family, because our karma comes into our family. And so what the values what the values and securities were in our childhood, our worth, what we see in our family we're born into, are we still living in that world? Is that still where we are? Do we still sort of mirror our parents' messages or what their values were, or have we moved away from it? Because what you came in with your family is what it was in the past, what it looked like. And so did you feel valuable in your family? Did your family feel like they struggled? A lot of people with Chiron and Taurus feel they always struggled. So if you came into a family that was all about money and its value, or that you struggled in it, these are sort of issues you may be addressing in your personal life now. And so at whatever age you are, you're going to still address are these my values? Have I moved on from them? Is this something that I think externally, or that I'm going to be accepted by society or my family, feel like a part of, or am I separating from it? Do I feel like I really don't need the things I was born with? I don't need to feel like I'm struggling. I don't want to put myself in jobs or positions where I feel like I'm always struggling. And so am I trying to make my life bigger than it needs to be, or am I comfortable in my life with how I want it to look and how I want it to feel? And so a lot of responsibility comes with Cancer, because you're here to nurture and help others at the same time. So a lot of our issues are we nurturing ourselves as much as we nurture others. This is a female issue, in terms of a woman tends to nurture more of those in her family, her children specifically, over herself. So you're finding a balance between how you take care of yourself and how you take care of others. So I want you to address these things and look at where your values are in this lifetime, at this point in your lifetime, and take stock in it. So this is where we head through the rest of this month. We'll go into more Cancer energy in July, as we'll come up into the birth of this country on the 4th of July. That's a whole thing. So right now, just look at the simple parts of where you are in your life, and let the stress out, let the bombardment of information not take you away from what's important to you, and how you sort of internalize it rather than externalize it. Okay, thanks for listening. My website's tommcmullen.com. Subscribe if you'd like. And thank you for listening. Until the next time.